You're listening to Inside Public Procurement by Bonfire, a show celebrating the unique stories and heroic efforts of those on the front lines of public procurement. Each episode, we bring you the latest trends, tips, and real stories from procurement trailblazers like you, who work tirelessly to bring positive impact to the agencies and communities you serve. Together, let's elevate the field of public procurement to new heights. Now, pull up a chair and let's gather around the bonfire. Our show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to the Inside Public Procurement Podcast. My name is Tung La and I am a client support agent as well as a podcast producer at Bonfire, an e-procurement solution used by over 500 public agencies in North America. I'm joined today by Sheena Fain, who is the lead of City of Akron Supplier Diversity team with a responsibility for diversifying the purchasing within historically underutilized businesses. She also serves as the contract compliance officer for the Akron Engineering Bureau. But that's not it. She has so many more qualifications that I'm going to share with you right now. She serves as the CEO of Guided Growth Consulting, a boutique consulting firm that assists clients with remaining competitive in their respective market through process improvement, continuous innovation, and leadership development. Sheena has worked in human resources for over 15 years across various sectors. She holds a master's degree in business administration from University of Phoenix and a certification in entrepreneurship from Cornell University. Sheena, hello.
Hello, Tung.
How's it going? I'm doing well. Look at all these qualifications you have, and you told me you have even more?
I do.
You don't have to tell me them now. You can tell me them afterwards.
I just plug and play.
Plug and play. Yeah. Sheena, how is the world for you today?
You know, the world for me is great. I mean, this opportunity is amazing. It's led to some really cool other opportunities that I had never considered before. So I'm excited. My world's great right now.
Fantastic. I have one question for you before we get into the meat of the episode. And that is, I feel like you have the energy of someone who wants to go viral. You've mentioned this a few times now. You're like, Tung, how do we make this podcast viral? How do I become viral? And I feel like you might have a plan behind that. So if you want to expand on that so I find out how to do that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. When I find out, I will absolutely let you know. I've been watching TikTok. I've been studying TikTok on how to go viral. Is it a dance move? Is it a song? So once I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Do you have your own like Sheena Fain dance that you're going to do on TikTok?
You know what? Not yet, but I've been working on that, like a Supplier Diversity dance. So we'll see. We'll see.
That's a very niche dance. But, once it hits, it's going to hit the whole internet and it's going to, millions, billions of views.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'm going to pick your brain on that. Should this podcast be on TikTok? What do we think here?
Absolutely. I think you should have like clips, like edgy clips on TikTok. I think, TikTok is the new Facebook or Instagram. And why not take advantage of it? I mean, it's great advertising.
At first I asked that question as a joke, but now that you mentioned it like that, you have a really good point.
Yeah.
I might have to talk to our marketing team about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get recipes off of TikTok. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What is the number one recipe you got off TikTok?
Oh, my God. It was these pull apart like pepperoni rolls that you can make at home, like a pepperoni roll. And you use biscuits and you make pepperoni and use mozzarella cheese and you kind of mix it all together and put it in the oven and take it out. And you can just pick it apart like whenever you get ready. It was great. My son loved it.
Oh, my God. You're making me hungry. Okay, how about we do this episode, you send me that link, and then I can eat said recipe because I haven't had breakfast yet. Okay, let's get down to business, Sheena. The first question I have to ask you is, how did you get into procurement? This is a fairly new role for you. You're very fresh into the role. So what is your journey getting into the role of procurement, and how are you finding the procurement world right now?
That's a great question. So my role is new to me, but it's also new to the City of Akron. So the City of Akron, they actually did a study, not a disparity study, but they did a study with a consultant, and they discovered that less than 1% of their spend actually was going to minority businesses in the City of Akron. And so they said, well, we need a dedicated person that can really focus on the communities that we live, that we serve, and that we work in. And so this opportunity actually came up. And when it came up, I was still running my own business. So I've had my business for about 3 years, and I decided, you know what? I'm passionate about things like food and water and air, and I can't always wait to get paid. And so the description, it fit me to a T. It was something that I was already doing as a consultant. It was part of that work already, which was very interesting to me. And then also being able to leverage my corporate background. So I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I've worked for Fortune 50 companies. And so I was able to leverage just all the experiences that I've had up until this point for this role. Now, originally, when the role came about, I was not chosen for the opportunity, believe it or not. They had picked someone else that was actually already in supplier diversity, and they declined the role. And so it took like 5 months actually for me to get the job. And I went through several interviews, several panel interviews. Believe it or not, it was like 5 people.
That's so intimidating. A little tangent here. Panel interviews, that's if you want to scare someone into getting a job, good way to do it.
Absolutely. I had nothing to lose. I mean, I had nothing to lose. And being an entrepreneur, I mean, me being an entrepreneur myself, you realize that you have to take the opportunities and you have to be able to leverage them. You can't be scared of, if somebody says no, okay, then you just go to the next opportunity. You just keep moving. So, yeah.
Yeah, you seem like a go-getter like that,
I am.
Fight against adversity kind of thing,
Absolutely.
Climb that hill, defeat that dragon. What other metaphors do I have?
Slay the dragon. Cut the
That's it,
dragon's head
slay
off.
the dragon.
That's right. Take my flag and put it on the top of Mount Everest. That's
right.
it. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Well, that's very impressive, Sheena. And are you finding the procurement role that you're in right now, like you've been in here since March, I believe, right? March of last year?
March of this year.
It's this year.
It's 2021,
Yeah. How has it been going from the start of March till now?
You know what? It's been great because I have an opportunity to do what most entrepreneurs do. What we do is create. Right. So basically taking this position on and making it my own. So in my job description, there were nuts and bolts of kind of what the expectations were, but they had no clue of what that looked like. Right. And so for me, being a strategic person, you come in, you want to assess the talent that's currently there. You start to understand the pain points, the problems. You kind of put together your SWOT analysis, that sort of thing. And I've been able to make it my own and then also take and leverage the personal relationships or my private relationships in a public setting. So it's been great.
That's so great. I'm so happy for you. And I can't wait to pick your brain because you are, of course, the supplier diversity expert of today. And that's what our episode is going to revolve around here today. And this is a topic that we have kind of touched on multiple episodes throughout Inside Public Procurement, and we've never actually had a full episode dedicated to it. And now we do because Sheena is here to share all of her knowledge on supplier diversity. So how about we start with something very simple here, which is, what is supplier diversity to you?
Okay, so here's a really good definition of supplier diversity. And let me just back up and tell you kind of how supplier diversity started. So we hear a lot of buzz around supplier diversity right now, right? But supplier diversity was actually started in 1969 of March by Richard Nixon. Okay. And this came out of the civil rights movement. Most people don't know that. Okay. But supplier diversity to me is basically a proactive business strategy that encourages the use of minority owned, women owned, veteran owned, service veteran, disabled owned, LGBTQ and historically underutilized businesses in the marketplace. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I wasn't expecting a history lesson today, but I love it. I love this.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. I can give you more of like how they even added on to that ordinance. I mean, when that ordinance was originally, when it rolled out, it was ordinance 11458. And then you talk about Jimmy Carter in 1979, he signed an executive order. It was 12138, and that was for women. So that added women also to supplier diversity. And then you talk about George George W. Bush Jr., who was the president, and the ordinance was 13360, and that was to increase federal contracts to veterans, right? And so this is starting to grow and it's starting to snowball, and people are starting to understand, the importance around supplier diversity, because small businesses, or minority businesses, as they say, really helps the backbone of the economy, which are small businesses, right?
Yeah. I'm still kind of shocked that you remembered those numbers for the ordinances.
I wrote them down.
You wrote them down. Okay, because you're staring me right in the eye as you were saying that. I'm like, I believe you. You could have said any set of numbers and it would have worked for me. But that's really fascinating that supplier diversity started. To me, when people bring it up, it seemed like a new concept. I'll be honest. Everyone's just like, supplier diversity is a very hot button topic right now in procurement. Everybody is very conscientious of supplier diversity, and we want to do our best to adhere to that. But you're saying that it started way back. Well, way back, relatively. It was in the 60s, but that was still further back than I thought it was. So I guess there is kind of a precedent for supplier diversity. It's grown since.
Absolutely, because you've seen it in the federal, like from the federal market, you've seen it, right, which is still public. But now you see it more so in corporations where they understand it's a business strategy. It's to grow the economy. You know what I'm saying? And like, people don't know that Toyota, that is part of their success, is that they were able to leverage minority companies, and they were able to utilize a supplier diversity program. And they actually have one of the strongest, supplier diversity programs in the nation. People don't know that.
So if you were to boil down what is supplier diversity, I assume it's just more than just minorities, that kind of stuff, right? We want to give like a specific definition for it. What is the Sheena definition of supplier diversity?
I would say my definition are using those companies that have been overlooked, really considering those companies and building capacity. Like that to me is supplier diversity. It's not just, black and white, right? But it's more of, okay, it could be women, it could be the LGBT community, it could be, Native Americans, but it's more than just the color of your skin, but it's like how you operate and do business. Because what we found, and this is why I deem it to be a business strategy, is that the more diversity you have at the table, the more representation you have, but then also you're able to serve your customers, right, in a greater way that you hadn't considered before. And even when you take things like in technology, right, when they first came out with the facial technology, there were a lot of biases in that, and people didn't realize it. And you may be like, well, why were there biases in facial technology? Because men had actually developed it, right? Well, guess what? Men don't wear makeup. Men don't typically change their hair color, right? They typically
Not me.
they typically but think about it, like they typically look the same. But if a woman like puts on makeup or, theater makeup, and she's trying to use technology or facial recognition, to open up her phone, it may not open up because it might not recognize her.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so supplier diversity sounds like it's for underrepresented demographics, but more than just race and color of our skin. It's also like our capabilities and stuff like that. Things that are overlooked, like you said. So when you say who's considered a diverse supplier, how do we expand on that notion?
How do we expand on who is a diverse supplier? I mean, just think about those who have been historically underutilized, right? Think about women, and that includes all women, right? It's not just African American women or indigenous women or, Latino women, but that includes all women. That includes Caucasian women as well, because they haven't always had a seat at the table, right? That includes, most recently, probably 10 or 15 years ago now, service disabled veterans, right? And being able to be awarded those contracts or get on those projects for a country that they've served, that's a big thing. You talk about minorities. Well, it's like who's considered a minority, right? And it kind of depends on, from a federal level, of what their definition is, and even from a state level, and then also from a local level as well, too.
So with that in mind, how do we support diverse suppliers? I mean, I'm sure we've been getting better at it since the 60s, but how do we continue to support diverse suppliers so that their work is known and they're put to the forefront of organizations?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do you support diverse suppliers? There really isn't one way to do that. And most people, the thing is that supplier diversity is not a one-way street. It's not A to Z, right? It could be A to 8.1 to 8.2 to B to, it just really depends. I think you have to understand the demographic of the suppliers that are actually in your city or in your state in order to support them. For me, when coming in, I had no list of any supplier at all. And so I had to hit the ground running. I had to get out into the community, go to some of our local shops, talk with them, meet with them, understand where they were currently in their business. And so that's where I leveraged a lot of my private relationships that I had. And a few of the issues that I've seen is that, okay, they weren't strong in accounting, right? So we introduced and we partnered with a local accounting firm to help us out with just some of the help that's needed with our diverse suppliers, right? Because a lot of times, 98% of minority vendors, I should say, they're solopreneurs. Okay, so just meaning they do everything in their business. So they're marketing, HR, accounting, operations, the manager, they're doing everything. So
Oh
it
my
can be
God.
very difficult.
98%? Really?
Yes.
Eh?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, 98% are solopreneurs, right? And if you look at that, even from a national level, they say like if each, minority vendor, if they actually employ one person, that unemployment can go to under like 1%. But then another thing that we noticed was that, okay, they needed legal representation or legal assistance because a lot of them, they didn't know how to read contracts or they didn't understand, the legal ramifications around certain things. And so we partner with a law firm that offers free or pro bono services to our local vendors, which is great, right? And then also what I decided to do was, okay, they need help with marketing, right? They need help really just building their back offices because owning a business and a business owning you is two different things, right? You can get the legal paperwork, the LLC, you can get all that online for less than $200, right? But that doesn't necessarily make you a business owner if you want to own a viable business and scale and grow. And so how do I take the vendors that I have from working a job to actually running and owning a business? Okay. Two totally different things. And so more recently, I've just partnered with our local university on some different initiatives that I would love to introduce, including education around understanding your business. Because again, if 98% of minority companies are solopreneurs, think about this. They don't get an opportunity to actually like study their craft, right? Like you don't have time because you're doing everything. So, and then you'll fall behind, right? And maybe the newest technology or the greatest technology. But then how do you work on yourself and evolve and grow who you are as a business owner, as well as growing your business? So it's about working in your business, but more importantly, working on your business. So those are just a few of the ways that we've been able to support our minority or our diverse vendors. And then also, collaborating with other agencies to see what they have that are available. That's a big thing too, right? I mean, because this work, you can't just do it alone, right? Which is great. I mean, you need all hands on deck, but you really need the right hands to be on deck with you.
It's interesting. If there's 98% of solopreneurs that you say that's in the nation, how do we put a spotlight on that more? Of course, you are going out leveraging your personal relationships and your professional relationships to find these diverse suppliers. But what do you think is the future of getting them more surfaced to the world and what we see? Because obviously there's probably a lot of diverse suppliers that are hidden from us that we aren't connected to from our personal and professional relationships. Is there a way to better find these types of suppliers?
Yeah, I think it is. I really think it depends on your city or wherever you're located, because Akron is very different, right? So in the Cleveland market, which is probably 30 minutes away from us, it's a larger metropolitan area, and the entrepreneurs there are a lot different, right? They're more robust. When you come to Akron, they want to know you care. Like you really got to get out into the community and you got to get to know people. I mean, I'm cold calling, I'm going by work sites where people are, taking selfies with them, getting to understand them, getting to know them, and asking questions. Hey, who do you know that's a diverse supplier? Hey, who's in your network that I should know, right? And this is like where the entrepreneurship in me, it really comes into play, is that you wear multiple hats, right? And so there is no one thing that I just do. That's why I wear a lot of different hats. But then also from the inside, is the inclusion part, okay? And then inclusion is huge, but then also being able to take a look and examine the current policies and procedures that we have in place, right? Because systematic racism, it does exist. And we understand that even in the government arena, that it has kept a certain demographic of people out purposefully, right? Because we have things that are written lowest and best, okay? Instead of saying, what's the value of the dollar that we're spending? Right. So what value do we get out of the money that we're spending? Because if I only spend with like large corporations, like if I'm just only going to a Google or to an Amazon or to a Target, you leave a whole different demographic out. You know what I'm saying? So those mom and pop shops, or those shops that actually support the sporting teams, or that actually live in the community, or they pay taxes in those, in those communities, they drive on the roads, they're shut out of, those opportunities, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point, which is the inclusion piece. Now, there is something called DEI that you introduced me to, an acronym called Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Do you want to expand on this acronym and what it means, and especially this inclusion piece of it?
Yeah. So really DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion, right? And this is another buzz term. And so how does that roll up? And so really DEI, supplier diversity rolls into DEI. It kind of rolls up into DEI, into that work, right? And you have internal DEI, and then you have external. So the internal is really like a dedicated person or a team of people that kind of support the initiatives of your mayor or whoever your leader is in that organization. Then externally, DEI is like the supplier diversity or economic development, like bringing all people in. And so really for me, I hear all these lofty definitions of what DEI is and how it actually works. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it my own. I'm gonna put my Sheenaism on it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
and
right.
and my Sheenaism of DEI is basically diversity is the differences that are sitting at the table, right? But then the equity piece, equity is really everyone having a seat at the table. And when I say seat, I'm very thoughtful about that. Not some people standing, some people barely seen at the table, some people sitting on the table, one person sitting at the head of the table, but everyone having a seat, because equity rolls up into equality, right? Equality is everyone being treated the same. But how do you get there? You get there through equity. And then inclusion is being included. So it's being you having a voice at the table, you sitting there at the table, sitting in the seat, and then your voice being heard and your ideas being implemented as well.
Sheena, you just have so much knowledge to share today, and I love all of it. I love also the Sheena spin definitions to all of these things too. What other Sheena definitions can you share? What do you call it? Sheena knees? Sheena.
There you go. I like it. Yes.
You like that? Okay.
I love that. Yeah, Sheena knees. I like it. It's a good one. I'll give you credit.
Okay,
for that.
thank you. Yes, I'll copyright it. You know what? No, you take it.
Thank you. Write that down.
So what kind of advice would you give to an agency starting their own supplier diversity program?
Yeah, one piece of advice that I would really give an organization is you need a dedicated person.
They need a Sheena.
Yeah, you need a Sheena. I agree. Everyone needs a Sheena. I agree. That's great. Yeah, let's do that for Christmas. Everyone needs a Sheena. Yeah.
Put it on a t-shirt. Come on.
There we go.
Okay, another idea. You can have that one too.
Yes, thank you.
But it's probably important to have a dedicated person to look at supplier diversity because it's such an important topic, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you start to look at how much money, flows through the economy and in businesses that are more diverse, that's why I say it's a business strategy more than it is a social initiative, because people take the social route and it's nothing wrong with that. And the social route is, this is a good thing to do. We should do this, ethically and morally, this is the right thing to do. But when you look at it just from a business standpoint, okay, supplier diversity, it promotes competitive pricing. It mitigates risk. It promotes innovation. It attracts talent. It supports collaboration. And so really you want someone in there that's able to do that, right? And I believe there was an article that I read just about women. Last month was Women's Small Business Month. And there were just some startling statistics there that companies that actually use women businesses, they generate their revenue is like over 116%, right? And so it's like, why would you not use diverse suppliers when it leads back to what a lot of people deem as being like the most important thing, money. right? And if you say money is not important, well, then give me yours and I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah.
That's incredible because, yeah, I think a lot of people, or I should say a lot of organizations, view supplier diversity as like a checkbox. We are doing that because of this ethical standpoint. But I don't think a lot of people do think back on what a lot of businesses start their businesses for, which is money, right? So to also have the perspective of, yes, of course, this is great that we are shining a spotlight on underrepresented groups, but the added benefit is the money. You also get that, you get the growth, you get the innovation as well. So that is a really interesting perspective. If you were to wrap this all in a bow kind of thing, how would you summarize the importance of supplier diversity?
How about this? By the year 2040, we will live in a minority majority society, right? So that is a very startling fact. And so you might as well get used to it now.
Yeah, can you expand on that a little bit? I love that phrasing, but I want to hear a little bit more from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the year 2040, they say we will live in a minority majority society, meaning that those that are the minority now will be the majority, and those who are the majority now will be the minority.
Okay, I did not hear about this.
Yes.
Is this just another Sheena drop of
No,
wisdom
no,
here?
no. This is not. This is no. This is like something I was looking like either it was the Department of Labor or I like to look at like statistics and numbers and data. I like to read the data and see where it's going because you get more insight and more facts to what's actually happening in the world besides like Google and, social media or anything else. But when you really read the numbers and you start to, understand, you can see the story and how it's happening. And it's happening now. I mean, you see in California where they've said, okay, if you are a publicly traded company, you need to have a woman on your board, right? Now, it's hard to believe that in 2021 that there's some companies that are publicly traded that are huge and they have no women on their board. That absolutely sounds crazy. And so you see these things starting to happen, more rapidly. And even like overseas, there are new policies that they're starting to introduce. In business, it just works as a cycle. So what started there is absolutely coming here. It's just making its round here. And I think we'll be more surprised because you have more millionaires now, right? In this generation. And then you have social media, which is huge, right? And this next generation, they're more authentic. They care. They're very inclusive. They're very, attached to their work and how they do certain things. And they want people to be included. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it.
Like,
You're just sharing so much. Yeah. No. I really like hearing about. I want to hear more about supplier diversity. Honestly, I'm just not sure what other questions to ask you. If you have anything more to share, I'd love to hear it now because we only have you for this one episode here. For now. There'll be more. But I would say this, like, and I got this from someone that I follow on LinkedIn. But really, be clear about your MVP, right? And that's your mission, your value, and your purpose of your program. Because, some days are easier than others, right? You don't win every single battle. You don't come in and everything just kind of works and meshes together. You do have some of those old ideologies and attitudes still alive and well and kicking, right? And they won't go down without a fight. But be very clear, like on what it is, what your mission is, who you're serving, what the vision is of where you see yourself going, and then the purpose, like your purpose for being there. Great advice. I'm going to throw you a bonus question here. And I know in our call before I said, Sheena, don't worry, I'm not going to give you any bonus questions or curveballs, but I just feel like you're up for it. So whatever. This year we're just going to go for it.
It's going to be funny.
We're just going to do it. We're going to do it, which is how do you think we can innovate on the way we handle supplier diversity and the processes behind that within organizations? I guess the main crux of this question is that what piece of advice would you give organizations that are handling their supplier diversity now and how they can improve on that? Like, is there any common, let's just say, mistakes that you see people doing in organizations or, missteps that you'd like to see improved on?
Yeah, I think some of the missteps that I see in some of the Okay, here's a really good one. And this may take a turn for a second, but in some organizations, they kind of feel like supplier diversity is just tucked away, right? Like we have it now, it's tucked away. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be involved in every single thing that you are doing, that you are considering. You should always be looking around the table to see who is there. Okay. And then even challenging yourself, right? Like challenging your own thoughts about certain things, right? If you always go to a certain person for something, go to somebody else. Get a different perspective. I think that is what grows companies, and that is what challenges you to be a better leader, right? And to really grow this type of program. And I mean, there's no shortage of creativity. I say be as creative as you possibly can. Imagination has been great for me here because I'm a super creative person. I'm extremely innovative, and nothing is off the table. Never say it can't be done. Just say you don't want to do it, right?
Sure. Be honest with yourself.
Just say you don't want it. Just say you don't want to do it. And I love like when people tell me no, because it just means no, not with you. But it doesn't mean that I can't do it, right? Like, so you can work with me or I can work around you. You just pick, right? But in the end, it's totally up to you how you want to work it, But I mean, it will get done. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what makes the journey for me so much more sweeter. It's like being an entrepreneur. You understand you're going to hear no, but eventually you will hear a yes. And it's the same thing in supplier diversity. That's why you have to be very clear on your MVP, right? Your mission, your vision, and your purpose, because there are some days where you can leave with a face full of tears, just behind some of the things that you hear people saying, right? Or even how they talk about other human beings. And it's like, seriously, you can't really be that stupid. But some people are.
Sure, yeah.
Honestly, some people are. And it's difficult when you're sitting next to someone and you're like, okay, I didn't realize that they actually thought like this. Like, how do you deal with that when you see people and you're like, oh my God, they really believe this way, right? People don't take off who they are when they come in the door to work. They bring all that with them. You know what I'm saying? Like they bring their thoughts, their ideologies, they bring all of that with them, and it's in their decision-making process every single day.
Right.
Yeah.
You're saying you gotta slay a couple dragons before you find the treasure. Right? Right. Back to the dragon metaphor. That's all I got, are fantasy metaphors.
I like it. Like Zelda. I like it.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. All right. Well, before we get into a video game rant, if you had to close with another piece of advice that you give to people starting their career in public procurement, I guess they don't have to just start in supplier diversity, but just in procurement in general, what would you give for those people?
I would say think. Just don't get caught up in the everyday nuances of what you're doing. Just think. Like if you just halfway think, right? I think you'll get something out of it, because so many times we're just at work and we're not actually there. We're just existing. We don't actually live. We don't actually look at what we're doing, but just look at what you're doing. Just think.
I like that. Another T-shirt that we can put on our designs here.
Boom. But we're business partners now.
That's right. So it really just comes down to like, we try to live or I guess we automatically live our life on autopilot sometimes. We get used to the day-to-day, and we're kind of machines in the way we're like, all right, my Monday to Friday is I wake up, coffee, check my emails, do this part of my job, do that part of my job, lunchtime, another part of my job, I'm done. But rather be a little bit more thoughtful on what you're doing in your day-to-day, and that could kind of open doors to more opportunities and more creativity and maybe just more fun in the day, really, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you would be surprised. I try to learn something new every day. I mean, who wants to just like exist? Like try to learn something new every day. And what you're doing today, you may like the same day you plant the seeds is not the same day that you eat the fruit. Okay. So what you're planting and what I'm planting right now, this is for like my children and my grandchildren and my children's children. Just think about it. Like 7 years, or like years down the line, generations down the line, you're planting seeds for your grandchildren, and you would want somebody like me to be advocating for them.
We all need a Sheena. We already mentioned this before. Well, Sheena, she needs. This has been such a lovely conversation. I really do hope you come back sometime. But do you have any way for people to connect with you after the show if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. You can look me up on LinkedIn. It's Sheena F as in Frank. You can look me up there. You can also send me an email if you'd like. Sheena, what is my email address? Sheena Fain at, I can't think of it. Sheena Fain at akronohio.gov. I'm always available to talk, or, if someone wants me to talk or speak on a panel, I'm always open to it, and just open to learning and collaborating too. So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Sheena. Again, this has been a lovely conversation. You can find another episode of Inside Public Procurement next time. My name is Tung again. And Sheena, I am looking forward to your Sheena TikTok videos. Can't wait. I'm going to start doing the Sheena dance.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Procurement professionals like you are the lifeblood of public sector organizations, dedicated not only to supporting your agency, but the constituents you serve. That's why we've created the Inside Public Procurement podcast here at Bonfire, a unique place where you can share stories and discuss the topics that matter to public procurement pros. From digitization and the future of public procurement to ensuring a fair and transparent process, we're all about finding new strategies to help your agency succeed. Join us at gobonfire.com to learn more. You've been listening to Inside Public Procurement by Bonfire. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have an idea for an episode or want to come on as a guest, email us at hello@gobonfire.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.